Lounge. It's tough. It's tough because probably yesterday was one of the worst defeat of the season for Lazio. Um, it's tough. It's tough because I don't know, Alistair. Did Lazio show up? What happened? I mean, we know that this team struggles when they're playing away. We know this team struggles after European competition on Thursday. But my God, what did we see yesterday?
Um, I would say what we saw was one of the worst Lazio performances in years. I mean, I think the first thing to say is Napoli were brilliant. I mean, they genuinely were really impressive, and we shouldn't take anything away from the performance that Napoli put in because they were on a complete other level. But at the same time, you have to say it's maddening, like you say, because it's so predictable. Some of this stuff with the same problems that always happen with Lazio, and we have to talk about the mentality, the approach to games again, because the opening 15 minutes were a complete disaster. I mean, how can you come in with that attitude, that complete lack of organization, complete lack of leadership, to take responsibility to try and at least try and weather the storm a bit, even if you are second best. And there was very little to save that match. I said at halftime that the least Lazio can do is put in a big improved second half performance to try and leave there with some respect. And sadly, I don't think they even did that. Um, there's
No,
very little, if anything, to take from yesterday that we can say is a positive.
no, definitely. I thought the first 10 minutes were awful. Um, Lazio didn't even try to contain Napoli. The you could see, it was celebration of Maradona, etc. You could expect Napoli to start strong, right? They wanted to celebrate Maradona in the perfect way. Napoli was coming after two bad defeats, against Inter in the Europe League, a terrible performance. So I was sure Napoli would have tried the first 20, 30 minutes to put big pressure on Lazio. And simply Lazio didn't try to do nothing to stop Napoli. Um, the first two goals, simply terrible. Cataldi passes the ball to Zelinski pretty much while Acerbi watch. And in the second one, it's, another awful defending from Lazio. And again, this season, Alistair, talking about only Serie A, Lazio won the first match away against Empoli and then defeat Milan, Bologna, Verona. We drew against Torino and Verona. That's it. I mean, looks the results of a team that is fighting for relegation, not a team that's fighting for the Champions League. How can we explain this difference between home matches and away matches?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it's been appalling. And I read earlier. I mean, sadly, I've come armed with some stats today because none of them are very good. I say sadly, but when it comes to away matches, Lazio have conceded 17 goals this season away, which is the second worst record in all of Serie A. Only Spezia have a worse record than Lazio at conceding away goals. That's just not good enough for a team that's supposedly fighting for European places. And we've seen how they can perform. It's that, Sarri again last night was talking about the ups and downs that this team has. We've been talking about that for years, the ups and downs that this team has.
Yep.
And I guess under the Inzaghi era, we did talk about the benefits of continuity, right? So the fact that the same team has been together for so long, that they understand each other really well, and that has been a contributing factor to Lazio getting the success they did under Inzaghi. But I don't know, what do you think? Is the other side of that argument the fact that there's this continuity, the fact, does that lead to this problem as well, where if
Yes.
we've had the same players, the same team with all these ups and downs, with these complete collapses pretty regularly, is what we need actually a complete refresh and not a continuity of the same team?
I fear so. I fear so. Even because I don't remember if we talked about it in the last podcast, but last time Lazio won away against Napoli in Serie A was 2015. Stefano Pioli was the manager. With Inzaghi as a manager, Lazio lost every single match away against Napoli except one where we drew 1-1. Last year we lost 5-2, if I'm not wrong. So this to tell you that it's not Sarri. I know a lot of people yesterday start saying, Sarri is the problem. What the hell is he doing? No, guys, with Inzaghi happened exactly the same time. It's the same thing. Every time we were going to Napoli, Lazio would have lost massively. 5-2, 4-0, 5-0. So it's not the manager, are the player. And as you was mentioning, the fact that Lazio has pretty much the same players of the past couple of years tells you that that's the problem. Last time Lazio won, 2015, only two players were starting that are now in the team. Felipe Anderson and Cataldi. I think Radu was on the bench because he was injured or something like that. So no Milinkovic Savic, no Luis Alberto, a lot of no Acerbi, that for me yesterday was awful. No Luis Felipe, again, terrible performance. I mean, I fear that it's time to do a maxi revolution, probably. Because I have the impression that there's a lot of talent in this team, but talent is not enough. In big matches, you have to, uh, you know, be tough enough to play at its best. And the thing, Alistair, don't know if you agree with me, is at home with the fans, Lazio is able to uh, rebounds from bad performance. Or Lazio went down against Inter, find a way to win 3-1. Lazio went down uh, against Spezia, won 6-1. Away, when Lazio goes down, the match is over. The match is over. Happened against Milan, happened against Juventus, Verona, happened against Bologna. Against Verona and Bologna, we started well. Then as soon as the other team scored, it was finished. So I
Hmm.
think this is the problem of this team.
Yeah, no. No, I mean it is. It's an attitude problem. It's a mentality problem, and I think that from the start we've kind of been saying we can't be in too much of a hurry when it comes to Sarri. I've personally not expected much from this season from the start because I expected we'd need two or three transfer windows to get the kind of team he needs, as well as at least a season to get him actually getting the team playing the right kind of football. But this brings up a whole other kind of line of argument about, well, actually he needs new players and more time, not just to change the way that the team plays, but the way that the team thinks and the attitude that the team has. That's probably as important as anything else. Um, and yeah, I I don't know how I can't really envisage that happening. I can't. It's not going to be a complete. Um, they're not going to tear up this entire squad and build a new one. But I,
Hmm.
I think even just the addition of some characters who can try and change that attitude. We've seen, for example, the influence that a player like Zlatan Ibrahimovic has had at AC Milan, and since he came in with Simon Kjaer, and the kind of experience and leadership that players like that can actually provide. And it's not just something that the media have made up. Other players in the squad have talked about that because they were such a young team, and the positive impact that can have. So it's not necessarily about booting out, selling Milinkovic Savic or Alberto or Acerbi because you think that they're responsible. I mean, I don't think they are. I think the team just needs more of those other kind of characters added to it to help keep that team on the right track in these difficult situations. Because I do think there is a lack of leadership there. There is this inability to kind of keep calm heads and keep cool and professional when you're up against it.
Are you sure about that? Because I was thinking Milinkovic Savic performance have dropped. He was the man that show up in big matches. Um, After the Inter match, I thought something changed, and you know, 2 weeks ago, I didn't give too much credit to the agent's quotes. He's ready for a big team. Now, after Juventus and Napoli, I'm thinking, well, looking at his performance, for me, it looks like his head is already somewhere else. And yesterday, when he was subbed, he was smiling when he was coming out, uh, like, hey, I'm the best and you're subbing me. I thought Milinkovic had an awful match yesterday. And Luis Alberto, the third goal, the Mertens one, he's 2 meters from the player. What the hell is he doing? I mean, how many more space do you want to give a player like Martins? Next time, bring the red carpet and show him where the goal is. I think these players have a lot of quality, but mentally they're not winners. And the other example is Ciro Immobile. I thought Ciro Immobile and Pedro were probably the only two who had a decent match yesterday. Who was the only one to show up at the end of the match and apologize? Ciro Immobile. He's the leader. He's got the winning mentality. I don't think Milinkovic Savic and Luis Alberto have them. Or at least Milinkovic Savic is not focused anymore with the team, I fear.
Yeah, and I think it is lacking in midfield in particular. I think we saw that yesterday. The problem was for Lazio, as well as the way they've played, was that they were up against a team who essentially showed them a blueprint of how you're supposed to play with a 4-3-3.
Yeah.
And one of the comments I made last night was that for as good as Napoli were in an attacking sense, I was actually just as impressed with how compact they were off the ball, because whenever Lazio were having possession, you see the way they restrict the spaces, how compact they are. The fact that the midfield and the players are kind of staggered between the lines. So whenever Lazio were trying to actually find space in those areas, they were just being shut down. They'd be passing it sideways and backwards, and eventually a mistake would come and there'd be a turnover in possession. And it was the complete opposite from what was happening in the first half with Lazio, where you had the kind of bank of four defenders and then the bank of five in a straight line in midfield and this huge area in between them. And Napoli were just having so much fun just passing the ball around in that area. And it was, I mean, the second goal was a complete disaster with that, because I think it was Acerbi who tried to step out of the line to occupy that area. He didn't get there, and then all of a sudden the defense is completely at 6s and 7s. But that's not necessarily his problem. I mean, yeah, maybe he misjudged it, but the midfield, you need some presence in there. I mean, the midfield was completely non-existent in a defensive sense at the start of that match, and they needed help. I mean, the defense has been coming under fire for how they played yesterday, but they need help from the rest of the team. And I just felt like if you watch the way that Napoli defended between the defense and the midfield compared to Lazio, I mean, the question I wanted to ask you was, we've seen Sarri mention the fact that Alberto and Milinkovic Savic can't play together, and then he got really good performances out of Alberto on the back of doing that. But do you think that actually the midfield selection was wrong for a game like that yesterday? That maybe you do need someone like Lucas, that maybe it is better to put in someone like Basic? Or, I mean, do you think it's down to the selection, or it was just the way that the players played?
I think it's down to how the players play, because I don't believe that Sarri said to Luis Alberto, hey, don't run when the other team have the ball. Just jog around and, when you're fine, you can come back and defend. Same thing to Milinkovic Savic. I cannot believe this is such an important match. And I cannot believe that Alberto or Milinkovic Savic thought, this is going to be a walkthrough. We're going to win so easily that I'm not even going to sweat, right? They should have thought, well, this is going to be a complicated match. I have to give 100% of myself. Instead, they didn't. So Cataldi had the issue, and probably the personality of Leyva would have helped, I thought, in these matches. But the gap between midfield and the defense was huge. You could see it clearly from the TV that if you put the ball there in the middle, it would be a nightmare. And that's simply what happened. So I don't think the selection is wrong. And again, I don't think that Sarri said to the players, hey, guys, the first 20 minutes, just jog around and see what happens, and then we start playing.
Do you think there's a problem with the pressing as well, though? I mean, that was something that Sarri kind of mentioned. But then, when we do that pressing, there's always one of those midfielders who kind of joins Ciro high up to press on the defense. But Lazio's pressing last night was pretty pathetic. Really, they didn't
Yeah,
really commit to it. So
no,
as soon as and Napoli were so comfortable with the ball at their feet, playing through that press. So then you've got this problem where you're kind of half-heartedly pressing high up the pitch, but as soon as they play through you, you're outnumbered at the other end.
definitely. And you have to add to this that Napoli has quality players. So if you have to press, you have to do it very well, because with the talent they have, they can easily bypass you, and then it's a nightmare. So Ciro pressing, maybe with Felipe Anderson or someone else, it's wrong. Or all the team does it, or no one does it. Uh, Example: Roma. Roma doesn't press at all, at all. And I know this could be an disadvantage, but at least you don't allow the other team, if they pass the first line of pressing, they have 20, 30 yards in front of them free. So, or you do it like Roma, you don't press, you stand back, or you do it like Napoli or Milan does, pressing with a full team. Like Lazio did yesterday was a huge mistake and just help Napoli. So that's one of the problems. One thing, Alistair, I was surprised to see Patrick starting again. Now, I don't want to say we lost because of Patrick, and I read a lot of people saying that. Patrick made mistakes just as Luis Felipe, Acerbi, and the other did. But do you think this was a mistake from Sarri, or do you think Sarri is sort of message from Sarri saying, "Hey, against big team, Lazar is starting right back. It's a huge risk. I don't want to take anymore."
I don't know. I was trying to work out pre-match if that selection was more, a ringing endorsement of Patrick and that Sarri really values Patrick, or whether it's a kind of passive-aggressive criticism of Lazzari and that he doesn't believe in Lazzari. Because we've kind of seen that a bit towards the start of the season, the Lazzari question and
Yeah.
Maricic being referred to him often and so on. But I think you can have your doubts about Lazzari, perhaps defensively, fine, but yeah, I don't think Patrick is the answer to that question. I agree that he's not obviously not individually responsible for that performance. I mean, I don't think anybody was, but that's kind of the point. That's kind of the problem, was that the entire team was playing at a really poor level. I just think that maybe you kind of alluded to this after the Europa game, I think, but maybe the idea of Lazzari, maybe he's just a bit too attack minded, that if you're having him on the right hand side and you're having Luis Alberto and Milinkovic in your midfield, maybe in Sarri's mind you've got too many players who are better going forward than going backwards. But this defense needs to be strengthened in January. I'm sorry, that has to be the priority, because it's. Are you ready for some more terrible numbers? Um,
After yesterday, nothing can shock me.
We've conceded 25 goals now this season in Serie A, and it's the fourth worst defense and fourth worst number in Serie A this season, apparently. Genoa, Samp, and Empoli with 26. Salernitana have got 29. Spezia 32. So nobody in of the European contenders is anywhere near as poor defensively as Lazio have been. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about the post Europa League games. The Bologna defeat, the Verona defeat, both came after
Yep.
European games. The Cagliari draw came after European games. But I mean, defensively, it seems to be the first thing to go. We've spoken about Reina, about the goalkeeper, time after time, but I don't think there's only so much a goalkeeper can do when he's getting no protection, and surely that's the priority in January, isn't it?
Well, it's terrible to be here and cannot blame Reina for this defeat, right? I know some people yesterday wrote about it and said, uh, and I can understand, Napoli had like 5 shots on targets and scored 4 times, right? But to be honest, when Zelinski shoots from 2 meters from you, it's quite complicated. But I can understand this point. I don't know if it's a defense problem. I think it's lacking of leadership, lacking of personality, lacking of someone really stepping in and say, guys, this is embarrassing. We cannot keep going like that. Because after the second goal, a good team has a reaction. Maybe they don't score immediately, but the next 10 minutes should have been a nightmare for Napoli. And instead, Lazio didn't do pretty much nothing. Yeah, they had a chance. Acerbi hit the post, I think, on the corner kick, but that was it.
And Luis
And
Alberto volley as well.
yeah, that was it. I mean, you have Milinkovic Savic. Shall we talk about Felipe Anderson? Because we mentioned all the other players. I thought Felipe Anderson got the wrong shirt. He was playing for Napoli yesterday, right?
Yeah,
We saw Zaccagni in the last couple of matches. We said it in this podcast. Hey, Zaccagni is improving. I think he should start. Lazio played completely differently with Zaccagni instead of Felipe Anderson. It's not a mystery. We said it. When Felipe is at his best, he's unstoppable. Unfortunately, he has 2, 3 matches and then he's gone. And when he's gone, he's really gone.
yeah.
I mean, this is a problem. You cannot play against Napoli 10 men,
He's been
right?
gone for a while now as well. I mean,
Yeah.
you've been bringing this up every podcast, I think, for a few weeks.
I mean, someone mentioned that after the goal against Inter, when he was pushed on the floor, he stopped playing. Yeah, probably. That's the point where he left the team, right? Now we have Zaccagni. Let's put it in. I mean, he played well yesterday. Um, yes, Lazio didn't play amazing football in the second half, but definitely an improvement with him and Lazzari coming in. We can talk about Lazzari not very good at defending. Guys, they scored 3 times without Lazzari. Are we going to blame Lazzari? It's like yesterday I wanted to tweet, now blame Murici for this. Because it looks like every problem is Murici related. Yesterday, Murici didn't play a single minute, and we lost 4-0. But I guess that it's all Murici. Oh, the other thing is, the transfer market is awful. Guys, we played with the best team we had. And Napoli was without Osimhen, without Anguissa, and
Yeah.
they dominated us. Can we blame the transfer market? No. Let's ask Luis Alberto what he was doing yesterday instead of showing up at the Maradona Stadium. Let's ask Milinkovic Savic what he was thinking instead of playing for Lazio. Because this is the issue, not the transfer market.
Yeah, just going back to the midfield again quickly, I think that again it was just kind of looking at Napoli was it made it even harder, I think, in many ways because they're kind of like a model of what Lazio are trying to get to because they're playing in a similar style, I guess, and because they're Napoli, you can't help but think of the Sarri ball comparisons as well. But looking at that midfield, you just like I think it's a question of balance as well. You know, it's not just the attitude mentality trying to get the best out of these guys, but the fact that in that Napoli midfield, they've got six central midfielders. You know, they've got 2 good ball winners in Deme and Guisa. They've got 2 good technical playmaker style players in Lobotka and Ruiz. Then they've got 2 kind of more attack-minded trequartista style players in Zielinski and Elmas. And you can just rotate between those 6. They're all like good high-level players, some better than others, but that's just a really good balance because you know what to expect from having that selection of players with similar but different characteristics. And you compare that to Lazio. Well, our 2 options for central midfielder, Cataldi and Lucas, very different players. Our alternative to Milinkovic Savic is Basic. I think that's the closest thing we've got to kind of 2 similar players for one role. And then there's no one to replace Alberto. Akpa is the next in line, and he's nothing like Alberto. So
you forgot Escalante. Is he gone?
Of course, I forgot. I saw him on the bench last night. I was like, oh yeah, that guy. I mean, yeah, I don't know what's happened to Escalante, but clearly not popular with the Sarri regime. But yeah, I mean, it just feels like they're there isn't the right balance of options in midfield. Obviously, we're relying too heavily on the same guys, and it's still not quite working out in terms of getting the right balance between defense and attack in there.
Yeah, I agree with you. We have to be honest and say Napoli is at another level compared to Lazio. So Lazio has to get there. We are not there, let's be honest. The other thing is, there are a couple of question marks. Patrick starting is one question mark. The other one is, for example, what happened to Andre Anderson? He came in against Empoli. He was called a couple of times. He literally disappeared. I think Andre Anderson is probably the closest player we have to Luis Alberto.
Oh, yeah.
Talent, great skills. I think, to be honest, in this list of players we have, he's the closest players to Luis Alberto. What happened? I don't know. I really don't know. He's not in the list of the 25 because he under 22, so he can not be put in there. So we don't know if he's in the team or he suddenly was taken out. But I think he could be the perfect, as you was pointing out, Akpa Pro is a completely different player to Luis Alberto. I think it's not a secret. Everybody can see it. But Andre Anderson could be that player. And so, what's happening? What's going on? And the other thing is, again, we saw that Felipe Anderson is not Felipe Anderson anymore. How come he starts against Napoli and not Zaccagni? It would be good to ask to Maurizio Sarri these questions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it'll be interesting, I guess, seeing the selection now on Thursday. It's a really important run. I mean, it's obviously last night was jarring, and we're pretty negative today because it was a real reminder of how far this Lazio team is from the better teams in the league. But I mean, look, December is is huge, and it's actually full of opportunity for Lazio because it does get a bit easier now. I mean, the run of games before the winter break, there's a lot of them, but the opposition are Udinese, Sampdoria, Galatasaray, Sassuolo, Genoa, Venezia. I mean, Lazio can, in those 5 league games, aim to win every one of them. I mean, Sassuolo.
Oh my God! Every time you say like that, we lose.
No, I'm not saying in the sense that I think Lazio should aim for 15 points from 5 games. But I mean, individually, each of those games Lazio should go into as a favourite. So I mean, they're not going to have another. Well, they shouldn't have another night like they did last night in this run, and they can still rescue something from this season. But my God, they need to change.
You pointed out there's a massive gap between us and the big team. I don't agree. Think about Lazio Inter. We deserve to win that match, and we play much better than Inter. I think this is a mentality problem because it's not possible that Lazio plays better than Inter, dominate that match, and win. And then a month later, Lazio has been destroyed by Napoli. The same team. It was pretty much the same starting 11. Against Inter, they play great football. So against Napoli, they didn't show up. Against Inter, we were home. Against Napoli, we were away. Is that the difference? Or what is it? Is this team inconsistent? I mean, is the problem the match after the Europa League? I don't know, but I don't agree with saying the big teams are far better than Lazio. Maybe they have more options, but at the end of the day, it's 11 against 11. I thought the starting 11 on Lazio had the quality to beat Napoli, or at least to not lose like that.
It depends which big teams you're talking about, because I think that teams like Milan, Inter, and Napoli are much further ahead than Lazio, not just in terms of the quality that they have in the squads, but in terms of where they are as a team, in terms of their development, how comfortable they are playing the systems they're in. And if you compare that to Lazio, massive transition. I don't think that Roma are miles ahead of Lazio, for example, or Fiorentina, or even Atalanta.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think there's like huge gap in that sense, but I think between the top 3 and the rest, And Juventus are obviously a very strange case this season. It's quite hard to know what they are, but
They're
yeah, I
terrible.
mean, but I don't know. It does almost feel more infuriating sometimes when Lazio win, only team to
Yeah.
beat Inter this season in Serie A,
Yep.
and uh, and then get hammered by you know Verona. So same old story.
Yeah, it's the same old story. And talking about the other teams, well, you can see the gap in the table, right? The top three, even though Milan lost, the gap is still huge. So I think you can see that there's a difference this year. But again, in a single match, Lazio have proved to be, for me, better even than Juventus, beaten Inter. They didn't show up against Milan and Napoli, and those were away matches. This is the thing that concerned me more. What's going on? What's happening? Uh, Now Thursday there's an important match because after this terrible defeat, I want to see a reaction. I don't care beating Udinese 6-0. I want to see the players coming in with the eye of the tiger, coming in like this is a Champions League final and prove that they have learned the lesson, which I don't think it will happen. And I think at the end of the day, Alistair, this team have proved that don't know. There's not the leader. There's not everybody has the winning mentality. It's not the manager. I think it's the player.
Yeah, well, it certainly seems that way more now that Inzaghi's gone and Sarri's come in, and we're still having the same issues I've always had. Um, but yeah, I mean, well, looking at this comment, it's a mentality problem. Personally, I think it's the midfield. They don't play to die for the shirt and lead. They drop their heads too quick. Yeah, and that's why I think there's this huge problem of Lazio starting games poorly. They've conceded more goals in the opening 15 minutes than any other team in Serie A this season. And I think that is a particular problem with a team like Lazio. I mean, yes, you're right to point out the home or away thing and that, the Inter game, they can make a comeback from that. But I think that the whole team just uh, feels a lot more comfortable, settled, and confident when they're in control from the start. And it's maddening because you do feel like the opening 15-minute thing is an easier quick fix probably than the overall mentality of the team is, because you can at least say scream at these guys before the match, that they have to be as focused as they've
Yep.
ever been at the very start. Get through that 15 minutes. You don't need to go all out attack. You don't need to go crazy trying to find a goal. You just want to get through that 15 minutes and be in a good position. And far too often they've not managed to do that.
Yeah, even because against big teams when they're ahead, then it's complicated to recover. Juventus pretty much played counter attack the rest of the match, and Napoli was confident after being ahead 2-0. So this is a huge problem. I don't think there's a quick fix. I don't know if the transfer market can help. So, and the transfer market is starting in a couple of months, and we remember that in January usually Lazio doesn't do great things. So, I don't know if there's something we can fix easy and soon enough. But yeah, let's hope that the positive thing, Alice, is that Lazio plays Thursday, so it's not a full week, and we can focus on the match, on the next match instead of you know thinking of what happened Sunday night. So I think this is the only positive thing we can think about, and the fact that Lazio have played all the biggest team, right? We
And
played against Inter, Milan, Juventus, Atalanta, Roma, Fiorentina, all the top teams we already done. So now we can lose against the small one.
yeah, and without tempting fate too much, I think being at home to Udinese is about as good a fixture as you can get at the moment in Serie A.
Yeah.
We'll see. But then on the other end of that, I guess they love just defending and sitting back and waiting for you to find a way through. So it's going to be such a different kind of match. But
We
yeah, you're right in the sense it is good to have a quick turnover to try and change the atmosphere a bit very quickly. But then again, the matches every 3 days has been the problem all along. So
yeah.
let's see what happens.
Thank you again for joining me, Alistair. We'll be back after Thursday night and hope that something changes. And finally, Lazio win again and we solve this problem. But it's complicated. It's not going to be a easy turnaround. But thank you again, Alistair, for listening. Thanks everybody for listening and review our podcast. Remember, you can find it pretty much everywhere: Spotify, Apple, iTunes, wherever you listen to our podcast, and on Twitch. This time we're on live on Twitch and on YouTube. So please subscribe to our podcast everywhere. Bye, Alistair.
Cheers.